Most students think they have a bad memory. They don't. They're just training their brain to forget. That's why you can study for 3 hours and still blank during the exam. Meanwhile, there's always that one student who studies less, yet somehow remembers everything. It's not because he's smarter than you. He's just using a memory system your brain actually respects. And once you understand that system, studying stops feeling like pouring water into a leaking bucket. So let's start with the first rule, because most students completely misunderstand how memory is built. Number 1, the retrieval rule. Most students think learning happens when information goes into the brain. It doesn't. Learning happens when information comes out. Top students do something most people avoid. They close the book. Then they force their brain to reconstruct what they just studied. Here's how it works. Read a small section of your notes, then close the book. Now grab a blank page and write down everything you remember. No peeking, no checking, just pull the information out of your brain. At first it feels uncomfortable. You'll forget things, you'll hesitate. You might even feel slower than rereading. Good. That struggle is the moment memory is actually forming. Because every time your brain fights to retrieve information, the neural pathways storing it becomes stronger. Think of it like walking through a forest. If you only look at the map, the path disappears. But every time you walk the trail yourself, the path becomes clearer. That's what retrieval does to memory. But here's the catch. Even if you retrieve something perfectly today, your brain may still delete it tomorrow, unless you do the next step. Number 2, the timing rule, spaced repetition. Your brain is constantly deciding what information is worth keeping. If something never shows up again, your brain assumes it wasn't important, so it deletes it. This is why cramming works for one night and disappears a week later. But there's a simple trick that stops this from happening. Instead of reviewing information randomly, you review it right before your brain forgets it. That timing is everything. Review too soon and your brain doesn't strengthen the memory. Review too late and you're basically relearning from scratch. But review at the edge of forgetting and the memory becomes dramatically stronger. Here's a simple system. Study something today. Review it in about 2 days. Then again, 5 days later. Then again around 10 days later. Each successful recall tells your brain, this information matters. Keep it. Apps like Anki automate this timing, which is why many top students rely on them. But there's another problem most students run into. Even if you review perfectly, you can still memorize information without truly understanding it. And when that happens, memory becomes fragile. One small change in how the question is asked and the answer disappears, which brings us to the third rule. And this one exposes instantly whether you actually understand something or you're just repeating words from your notes. Number 3. The Feynman test. Here's a brutal way to test your understanding. Close your notes. Now explain the concept to a 12-year-old. No technical words, no complicated sentences, just simple ideas. If you can't do it, you don't actually understand the concept yet. You've just memorized the language around it. So here's the rule. Grab a concept, explain it out loud like you're teaching someone who knows nothing about the topic. If you get stuck halfway through, that's the exact place your understanding breaks. Go back to the material, fix the gap, then explain it again. But simpler, because simplicity forces clarity, and clarity builds stronger memory connections. But even perfect understanding has a limitation. Your brain can only hold a few pieces of information at once, which is exactly why huge pages of notes feel impossible to remember. So the next technique solves that problem by compressing information into a form your brain can actually handle. Number 4, chunking, the compression trick. Your brain struggles with random information, but it's incredibly good at recognizing patterns. Try this quickly. Memorize this number, 492-618-7391. Most people forget it almost instantly. Now watch what happens when we reorganize it. 492-618-7391. Same digits, but suddenly it becomes easier to remember. Why? Because your brain isn't remembering 10 separate numbers anymore. It's remembering 3 chunks, and your working memory can only hold about 4 to 7 pieces of information at once. Anything bigger than that gets dropped. This is exactly why most students struggle with their notes. Their notes look like this: huge paragraphs, long explanations, definitions buried inside walls of text. Your brain sees that and quietly gives up. Top students compress information instead. A paragraph becomes 3 bullet points. A long explanation becomes a simple structure. A chapter becomes 5 key ideas. For example, instead of memorizing a long description of photosynthesis, you compress it like this: light energy, water, carbon dioxide equals glucose plus oxygen. Same idea, but now your brain sees a pattern, not a paragraph. And patterns stick. But sometimes information is still too abstract to remember easily. Lists, sequences, large sets of facts, random details. This is where the final technique becomes incredibly powerful because it uses something your brain evolved to remember extremely well: locations. Number 5. Memory Palace, the location trick. Memory champions can memorize hundreds of numbers in minutes, not because they're born with superhuman memory, but because they use something called a memory palace. Here's the strange part. Your brain is much better at remembering places than remembering abstract information. You might forget what you studied yesterday, but you can probably picture your house perfectly. You know exactly where the front door is, where the kitchen is, where the hallway leads. Your brain is extremely good at spatial memory, so the memory palace takes advantage of that. Step 1. Choose a place you know very well: your house, your school, your daily walk. Step 2. Turn that place into a mental path. For example, front door, living room, kitchen, bedroom, bathroom. Step 3. Place pieces of information in each location. Let's say you need to memorize 5 ideas. Imagine the first idea sitting at your front door, the second idea in the living room, the third idea in the kitchen. But here's the important trick. Make the images ridiculous. Your brain remembers strange things much better than normal ones. Imagine a giant math formula glued to your front door. Imagine a historical figure cooking noodles in your kitchen. Imagine a huge oxygen molecule floating over your bed. Weird images, clear locations. Now, when you mentally walk through the house, the information appears automatically. Front door, living room, kitchen, bedroom, bathroom. This is the same method memory competitors use to memorize entire decks of cards. And once you practice it, memorizing large amounts of information becomes dramatically easier. But here's the real takeaway. Memory isn't talent. It's architecture. The way you structure information determines whether it sticks or disappears. So here's the system again. Retrieval. Force your brain to pull information out. Spacing. Review information before the brain deletes it. Feynman. Simplify until you truly understand it. Chunking. Compress ideas into patterns. Memory palace. Attach information to locations and images. 5 techniques, 1 system. Use these together for a week and your study sessions will feel completely different. Because the difference between average students and top students isn't intelligence, it's strategy. So decide who you want to be: the student who rereads the same page 5 times or the student who remembers it once.